This show is your nonviolent arsenal to get this criminal regime removed from power. Are you ready? I'm Jessica Denson, and this is Lights On. I am the founder of the Removal Coalition. And this week, I want to give you a very specific toolkit as to what you can do right now to put the pressure where it belongs to put an end to this insanity. Once again, this week, we saw a spectacle that would be hilarious and comical if it were not so horrific in the Epstein hearing for Pam Bondi, the disgraceful. I don't think I've ever seen a woman debase herself in public more than Pam Bondi did this week for Donald Trump. This hatchet for hire, this pathetic excuse for a woman that came before the Senate. And to see this level of ludicrous illegality running our country as people are being murdered on the streets, as concentration camps are being set up at alarming rates that exceed by numerous multiples the amount of concentration camps that were in Germany in 1939, the amount of people being held in those concentration camps. And we are not focused on the singular method that our Constitution gives us for removal. That's not something that I'm okay with. And that is why this platform is 100% committed to giving you the tools and putting the pressure where it belongs to get these people out of power. I want to thank everybody who is a member of this channel, everybody who subscribes. If you haven't already subscribed, please subscribe right now where you're watching this to the Jessica Denson YouTube channel. It is vitally important that this message gets out and we apply pressure on Congress as our democracy is disappearing before our eyes by a criminal regime to do their job. I'm going to call out some people today, some of probably your favorite people in Congress, and let you know where their words put them and where their actions put them and how you can be applying pressure for them to actually step up in this moment. And you know what? Maybe they don't even know. Maybe they don't even know of the power that they themselves hold, each one of them, and we just have to remind them. Let's just give them that exceeding grace, even though I think it's a kind of a crazy assumption to think that they would be in that position and not know their constitutional authority, but we're going to remind them of it today. I'm going to give you their contact numbers to call them in their offices. Just a few. We're just going to select a few today. We literally could do this with every member of the House of Representatives, other than Representative Al Green, who has been the only, and when I say only, I mean the only member of Congress doing what is requisite to save our democracy in this moment, and is under severe threat from being unseated in Congress by a Democrat who is challenging them. Yes, you heard that right. The singular most effective Democrat in Congress is being pushed out. I'm going to tell you about that race. There is a primary coming up on March 3rd in Texas. You need to pay close attention to this race. This race is not being framed properly. It is kind of disgusting, the attacks that Representative Al Green is under right now. And he has been one of our closest allies in the incredibly successful movement that we have harnessed at the Removal Coalition and with our partners to move the needle on impeachment and removal of these criminals running our country. And Al Green is under serious threat of losing his seat, the one man who has done more for our democracy in this administration than anyone else in that entire Congress. We're definitely going to shine a light on that. Let me just tell you, let's remind everybody of the constitutional remedy that we have. Article 2, Section 4. The president, vice president, and all civil officers of the United States shall be removed from office on impeachment for and conviction of treason, bribery, or other high crimes and misdemeanors. Of course, this is a process that starts in the House, and there is so much misinformation out there about impeachment. It is a political process. It can mirror a judicial process in the sense that there are hearings and investigations and drawn out procedures and testimony, but it does not have to. It is purely political. The consequences of impeachment are not imprisonment. They are not jail. They are simply being forbidden from holding an office of public trust where you have violated that oath. You have violated the Constitution, something Donald Trump did on day one of this administration when he pardoned people convicted of seditious conspiracy that are now out in our streets, many of them employed as ICE and CBP officers, terrorizing and at worst cases, executing people in the streets of America. That was day one of his administration. This man has committed endless impeachable offenses, enriching himself to the tune of billions of dollars under this lawless regime. Executing people on the Caribbean. That's one story we just seem to forget about. Look at how much distraction and criminality there is. Just a few months ago, we were talking about how this administration was murdering people on the Caribbean. Over 100 boat strikes murdering people in the name of combating drug trafficking, when these are many of these people just fishermen out on the seas that are being murdered, executed, extrajudicial killings. This is just one of the multitude of crimes that is committed on a daily basis. The spectacle this week of Pam Bondi, she is one of the multitude of criminal cabinet members. You notice how the focus shifted this week from Kristi Noem to Pam Bondi. And what did our Democratic friends promise us a few weeks ago? They were going to impeach Kristi Noem. What happened to that impeachment of Kristi Noem? We're definitely going to talk about that. Let me just start off. We're going to start off, as I mentioned, I'm going to go through a few members, just because these are members that are vocal. These are members that we definitely heard from this week. Some of them that we hear from all the time. And these members can and must be doing more with their constitutionally vested authority and duty to confront a tyrant in office. They can and must be doing more. Let me start with AOC, one of the most popular, one of the most well-known. Earlier this week, she was talking about these concentration camps that are springing up all over the United States. As I mentioned a minute ago, listen to these statistics. In 1939, at the outset of World War II, Germany had approximately 24,000 Jews and political opponents interned in concentration camps. Currently, there are 73,000 people being held in immigrant detention facilities in the United States. That doesn't include the people that were deported for detention in CCOT, the maximum security prison in El Salvador. It does not include the people who have been deported for detention in Swaziland in Africa, or the individuals deported for detention in South Sudan, all of which have happened even though most of the people deported there have absolutely no ties to these nations that have these horrific human rights records. They're sending people to places where they will be tortured. But 3 times as many, what I just read you, 3 times as many people currently in 2026 are in concentration camps in the United States of America as there were in Germany in 1939, right before the start of World War II. If that doesn't spawn the most emergent, urgent action to remove these people from power, I don't know what was. So this was AOC earlier this week. She was saying, as she was being interviewed walking through the halls of Congress, I think every American should be alarmed. They are building and have built a black box system that disappears people, both immigrants and U.S. citizens alike. Now, of course, she's talking about this horrific network of concentration camps that are being built. You've probably heard a lot of reporting. Rachel Maddow has loved to do a spotlight on this, how citizen activists have been instrumental in putting pressure and forcing these concentration camps not to be built, to be putting pressure on the developers, on people who are selling and buying land for these prison camps. This is just one thing, and I'm going to touch on this again, that makes me sick about how our American citizens have to be out there conducting whack-a-mole to the criminal Nazi infrastructure that the Trump regime is currently building because our elected officials will not do their job. So AOC this week, rightfully, of course, as they're all very, very good at diagnosing the problem, calls out the alarming rate at which these prison camps are being built. And this is a post from the Removal Coalition, which I run, and it says, AOC, are you ready to file an article of impeachment against the president overseeing concentration camps springing up across the United States? How about forcing a vote on the articles filed against Nome? Anything? Anything? They have a remedy. You must understand this. Congress has a remedy for this. The Democrats, a few weeks ago, finally embraced the impeachment of Kristi Noem. They wouldn't do it yet about Donald Trump, but the murder of Alex Preddy was enough to tip them over the edge and get most of the Democratic Party on board for the impeachment of Noem. And what has happened with that impeachment? Absolutely nothing. It is literally sitting in committee where it will die and you will not hear anything about it again. It was filed and meant to placate you, meant to placate a base that is absolutely enraged by the inaction of Congress. I want to share this post from you. This is just from someone who was in Minnesota after all of the horrors. God bless the people of Minneapolis and Minnesota, what they have been through over the past few weeks. And now, of course, Homeland Security is retreating, pulling out after leaving a trail of blood in their city, in their state, only to regroup and unleash the terror in some other city or in some other way in this country. But this is someone writing on Blue Sky, Ray Lauren. She said, "We have had strikes, and many Americans have directly put their bodies in the line of fire to defend their neighbors from this administration. People in rural places and cities and suburbs are showing up to say hell no, and we've swept plus 18 in special elections, and Congress is still doing nothing." Yes, Congress is still doing nothing. Even the demands that they put out for the shutdown or the partial shutdown of DHS today were so minuscule. They're asking for masks, they're asking for body cams, and they're asking for the already mandated, constitutionally mandated warrants that the Fourth Amendment requires as their only conditions. That's it. That's it. While they're literally executing people, they need to be demanding that Noem goes. They need to be demanding that Trump goes. And as I said, that impeachment of Noem was meant to placate you. Nothing happened with it. It's sitting in committee. AOC issued this email, fundraising email. They all love to send out their fundraising emails a couple days ago with some really misleading information that I just want to clarify for you. She said in this email, she said, "The other day, someone on Instagram asked me, isn't impeachment a waste of time? Aren't other investigations more efficient?" This is a very good question because there are a lot of different factors when it comes to impeachment. These include when it is the right time to impeach, the actual terrain you're working with, and the substance of impeachment. A lot of people think impeachment is just a piece of paper that says, do you impeach this person? Do you think this person is good or bad? Impeachment is like an adapted form of a trial or a criminal trial. There need to be charges. You have to identify the high crimes, misdemeanors, It requires a lot of buildup. It's a discussion and pressure. Okay. I've had enough. I can't even, I don't even have the patience to read to you any more of this email from AOC. Actually, AOC, it can be a piece of paper. It can just be a piece of paper that is filed and a vote is forced. Maybe you need to start considering that simplicity, that urgency when it comes to the daily, deadly, murderous actions a la Nazi Germany in 1939, but at a much more rapid pace that this administration is committing. All of those things she said about a trial and a criminal trial, I addressed at the top. Not required. not required. It is a political process. All those things about pressure and buildup. I'm just wondering, AOC, I'm wondering how many people have to die in this country before you will think that sufficient pressure or sufficient narrative or the timing, whatever it is, that buildup that you're talking about. When are we going to meet that moment for you, AOC? What is that threshold? How many people have to die? How many multiples of the amount of people in concentration camps in 1939 in Germany do we have to have in the United States in 2026 before it's the right time to impeach? I'm just wondering. And then she ends that letter by saying she's on board for the Kristi Noem impeachment, which again is just dead in committee right now. Why? Why is it dead in committee? Because nobody will force a vote on it. Rule IX, Rule 9 in the House of Representatives empowers any member of Congress. I mean, any member in the minority, any member that's not on a committee, any member to force a vote on articles of impeachment. It is a special privilege that is given to members when it comes to the impeachment power because it is so vital and so important that they can call that vote anytime. You don't need hearings. You don't need an investigation. You just need a member willing to say, I invoke Rule 9 on my articles or on a colleague's articles. And it's time. It is time to put these members who have sworn an oath to the Constitution on record as to where they stand. That's all it takes. I'm going to put Representative Ocasio-Cortez, AOC's number up on the screen. This is her phone number at Congress, 202-225-3965. I would highly encourage you to call her office and tell her that we have reached that boiling point. In fact, we are way past that boiling point. I think the family of Renee Good and Alex Preddy and Keith Porter Jr. and many, many more that have been executed or currently being tortured in ICE detention camps, or maybe the families of the fishermen who have been executed on the Caribbean seas, or any other endless family of a victim of the lawless, corrupt criminality of this administration, the Epstein victims who were revealed this week, any number of people who have suffered, would want you to take action now. And you are such a leader, AOC. You are so beloved and trusted that you would be an excellent candidate to be leading this fight. And frankly, I don't understand why you are not. I don't understand why you are not. Please call AOC's office and ask her if she is serious. And she needs to be serious. For God's sake, I do believe she is genuine in the way that she feels about this administration. To force a vote on the articles of impeachment against Kristi Noem, to choose. She has complained about there being too many impeachable offenses that Trump has committed to even choose. Well, take that time, choose one. Just choose one. Choose one impeachable offense that Donald Trump has committed and file an article of impeachment against him and force a vote. There is no time to waste. This absolutely must be done now. People are dying. The American democracy is disappearing before our eyes. They are turning us into Nazi Germany in 1939. There's no time to waste. We can't wait until a midterm that may or may not rescue us from this. We need to take action now. Your legacy is going to be marked by what action you take right now, AOC. And that goes for every 422 members of that body. I'm just starting with the ones, to be clear, who articulate the problem. If we can get them to articulate the problem, we must be able to pressure them to apply the solution. That is why I am starting here, because the Republicans obviously have not articulated the problem. We will get to them, and I can't wait to get to them. But here are our allies that have articulated the problem. They need to start applying the solution. They need to. We can't afford anything else. Now, one representative this week said just that in those hearings with Pam Bondi. He was one of the most I mean, there were a lot. I mean, you watch the performance of Democrats and you have to commend them. They do a really good job of calling out the lunacy and the illegality of this administration. But again, it's just so frustrating and kind of, you just get tired of seeing it when they won't actually apply the remedy. But here's Representative Chuy Garcia, representative from Illinois, who's actually retiring this year. He's retiring. I think he would be an excellent, excellent candidate for bringing articles of impeachment. He has absolutely nothing to lose and everything to gain by cementing his legacy. But listen to what he says about what his very own party should be doing in that Pam Bondi hearing. Here's Chuy Garcia.
Democrats must impeach and remove lawless officials like you and Kristi Noem and impose accountability for every criminal action. You're one of the worst attorney generals in our history and an instrument of Donald Trump's lawless authoritarian agenda. And I'm glad the American people are seeing who you are, how you act, and the lack of good values. You weaponize the Department of Justice to target immigrants, working families, and anyone that Trump deems an enemy of the state, all to protect real powerful criminals, including in your administration. My Democratic colleagues have focused on your cover-up of the Epstein files and your passion for protecting pedophiles and child traffickers. That alone is grounds for impeachment. But there's so much more to your corrupt tenure as Attorney General.
There is so much more. There is so much more. And obviously, Donald Trump is the tip of the spear, as he said, part of his authoritarian agenda. I put on the screen the phone number for Chuy Garcia's office, 202-225-8203. 202-225-8203. He said it. Rep. Garcia said it right there in that clip. Democrats should be impeaching and removing lawless officials. Absolutely, they should be impeaching and removing lawless officials. They always, when you hear them talk, a lot of the talking points of the leaders, of Hakeem Jeffries, of Chuck Schumer, of many of these Democrats, is that the Republicans are stopping accountability. The Republicans are keeping us in this situation. And if you just look at the numbers as they stand and don't even apply pressure, it would appear that that is the case. But these Democrats will not even put their own members on record and the Republicans on record to actually prove that. There is only one man who has been willing to do that, and that is Representative Al Green. We're going to get back to this because Representative Al Green is so vital to our democracy right now, and he needs all of the support in the world. We're going to get back to him, but he is the only man who has been willing to both file articles of impeachment and force a vote. This is the furthest thing in the world from a performative action. It is the one thing that moves the needle, and let me tell you how effective it is at moving the needle. When Representative Al Green first filed articles of impeachment over the summer against Trump and forced a vote, he only got 79 Democrats to support him. When he did it in December, as a result of our movement at the Removal Coalition, as a result of our Remove the Regime protest, as a result of us coming forward with that clear demand for impeachment and removal, Al Green committed to filing and forcing a vote on new articles of impeachment. He stood with me on the Hill Triangle at Capitol Hill and committed to do that in December. And then he followed through with that commitment. And guess what? When he did that, there was a 77% surge in support for impeachment from when he filed it over the summer. 183 Democrats, if you count the ones who voted present, voted to not table those articles compared to 79 over the summer. That is a massive progress. Massive progress. And why? Because even the ones that were reluctant, even the people like Jamie Raskin, who has been one of the most obstinate and reluctant to further articles of impeachment before the midterm, had to vote for it because he was so shamed into not doing it. That is how people pressure works. That is our power when we use it. This is the remedy, Article 2, Section 4, to get them out. We should be focusing all our attention on pressuring them to use that remedy and not accepting anything else. And if we can move all the Democrats in that direction, we can't even talk about the Republicans yet because the Democratic Party isn't even all on board. We can talk about the Republicans. I'll take that back. By the way, if you want to give me some Republicans to point out their weaknesses and to highlight on the show, we'll start maybe on the next show or show after that. We'll start giving you some numbers of Republican offices to call too, because guess what? One thing I like to remind them is about the Nuremberg trials and how it wasn't an excuse to say you were just doing your job, and your sycophancy for the dear leader wasn't an excuse when it came to that reckoning. And it's not going to be an excuse for these people either. So I've done this in person and in-person lobbying at congressional offices of Republicans. And I remind them of how that reckoning is going to come for them. So I'm excited to get on to Republicans. But we don't even have the Democrats. That's the pathetic part. All of these Democrats that are clearly articulating the full-scale emergency and crisis that we are going through will not use the remedy. Forcing votes is the way to move the needle, folks. It is not performative. It's what must be done. File articles of impeachment. Invoke Rule 9 to force a vote. On the screen is the number for Chuy Garcia. Give his office a call. Tell him this is a perfect opportunity to cement his legacy. We heard him at the Pam Bondi hearing saying Democrats should impeach and remove. Let's see it. Let's see it. Let it not just be words. Let it be action. Chuy Garcia, please own up to that statement, that clear acknowledgement of the responsibility of Democrats and every Republican, of course, and have your party, and it could be you, my friend, leading the charge by filing articles of impeachment and forcing a vote. There's no time to waste. You've seen it in Chicago, in your own hometown, in your own home state. You've seen the brutality. You've seen the lawlessness. Please, Chuy Garcia, file an article of impeachment, force a vote. Now I'm going to move on to someone who very popular in the Democratic Party. In fact, she's running for Senate right now in Texas. I mentioned the March 3rd primary. There's not just Al Green, who's up for being ousted from his seat, but there is Representative Jasmine Crockett running against State Representative James Tallarico in the Texas primary for Senate. And Jasmine Crockett, man, she's really good at giving the diagnosis. And I really like Jasmine. I used to have her on this show all the time back when we were not living under this horror yet. And I really think she is a talented and very clearly articulates and brings out the problems and the criminality like few others do. But Jasmine isn't living up to the moment either. I hate to say it. She's not meeting the moment in the way that she could be. Let's listen to a clip of Jasmine, because she's so good, like I said, so good at articulating what we're facing. Here's Jasmine earlier in the week before the Pam Bondi hearing.
But we're not going to stop. There were those that thought we would stop when we were able to get the discharge petition done. There were those that thought we were going to stop when it didn't seem like we had the votes once we finally got that done. I mean, the House Speaker shut the House down so that we would not go there, right? And now that they have violated the law, because this is actually in law, we are not stopping. So I want people to understand that House Democrats, we are going to be on their asses. Like, that's just the reality.
And what is your message to President Trump in that case?
Same thing. We're going to be on his ass. I mean, it is so, I don't really know where we are in this country. Why are we even having this conversation? The United States is falling apart right now. partially because he's going out and randomly allowing for the killings of people in the middle of the street. But the other part of it is that we have a 34 count convicted felon, and there are people that are still shielding him from any type of accountability as it relates to a child sex trafficking ring. It is time to take the blinders off. Like, I don't understand why we are pretending like any of this is normal.
Okay, yes, Jasmine, I could not agree more. It is time to take the blinders off. What are we even doing here? Like she says, this is insane. This point that we find ourselves in a nation right now is beyond the pale. And she says that Democrats are going to be on their asses. Democrats are going to be on Trump's ass. Democrats are not on Trump's ass. I just want to break it to you, break it to everybody watching this show right now. If Democrats really wanted to be on Trump's ass, this is what they could do and they should be doing. They should be filing an article of impeachment every single day that the House is in session. And it actually doesn't even have to be in session for them to file. So they should be filing an article of impeachment every single day. I told you AOC complained there's so many to choose from. Well, let's spread it out among the caucus. You've got over 200 members in your party alone. File an article of impeachment every single day for his lawlessness and criminality. This 34 count convicted felon who is lawlessly inhabiting our White House in violation of Section 3 of the 14th Amendment. Let's file an article of impeachment against him every day for every murderous shit show, distraction, everything that he throws at us. Let us meet it with the constitutional remedy. Article 2, Section 4, your sworn duty. File an article of impeachment every single day. And then force votes. That's being on his ass. You really want to be on his ass? Force votes on articles of impeachment against Donald Trump. That is a way to be on his ass. Now, like I said, I like Jasmine. I really do. And I understand why she is such a popular representative. But she's running in a election, like I said, right now, up against James Tallarico, another very talented Democrat who I like and has also been on the show many times. Two incredibly talented people in Texas. I would suggest calling Jasmine Crockett's office, especially if you are a Texas resident, if you are a constituent of Texas and you have the ability to vote in that primary. If you really want Jasmine Crockett to take action and have her action match her outrage, match her words, tell Jasmine Crockett that you will withhold your vote for her in the Texas primary unless she files an article of impeachment and forces a vote before that March 3rd primary. You really want to use your leverage as a citizen, as we the people that actually hold the power in this country? Use that electoral leverage. Tell Jasmine Crockett, we hear you. What are you going to do about it? File an article of impeachment. And if you're in Texas, tell her, you know what? I was going to vote for you. And I don't know. I'm putting words in your mouth. Maybe you were, maybe you weren't. But that is one very critical lever you could use for Jasmine Crockett, for something that is very much immeasurable for her and in her life, wanting to get that primary win and be the Democratic candidate in Texas, to demand that she start matching her outrage with actions. She called out Pam Bondi for being complicit this week on Blue Sky. She's, like I said, very good. They're all very good at doing this. She said Pam Bondi has been a complete and total failure at her job. The Epstein survivors showed more courage just by being in that room than she did under oath. She refused to answer questions and chose complicity. America deserves better. And I said, yes, we know, Jasmine. When are you going to end your complicity? Not to single you out. It's literally every House member except Al Green. File impeachment articles and force a vote. We've heard your diagnosis a million times. Put your colleagues on record with the remedy already. And I've said it a million times. The clip of me saying it on Capitol Hill has been viewed millions of times. Apparently, this is something that resonates. Every member of Congress that is not filing and forcing votes on articles of impeachment right now is complicit. Not just Jasmine Crockett, not just AOC, of course, not just Jamie Raskin, not just Hakeem Jeffries, not just Jared Moskowitz and Laura Friedman and Becca Balint and Chuy Garcia. I mean, I could go on. I could just name all of them, and every single Republican, of course. They're all complicit. They're all complicit unless and until they invoke the remedy that the Constitution mandates they do as sworn oath takers to that Constitution facing this crisis. So there's the number on your screen. Call Jasmine Crockett's office. Tell her we want to see her outrage and her diagnosis matched with the remedy that the Constitution gives, and we need to see it now. And my suggestion is that if you're a Texas resident, you use that electoral leverage so that it's actually very meaningful to her in what she is trying to accomplish right now. Another representative that I just mentioned is Becca Balint. And I don't have a clip of you to show you of Becca Balint. She's another one who I am a huge fan of. She's actually a Jewish American who came out very early and spoke out against the genocide in Palestine. She's had so much moral clarity on so many issues. I saw her come out this week and talk about just how disgusting what she saw behind closed doors was in those Epstein files. She has rightfully complained about the unthinkable revealing of victims' names and nude pictures, unredacted nude pictures that have been released in these files of victims while the criminal, powerful elites have been protected. She has a 15-year-old daughter and kind of related her disgust and outrage to this to her position as a mother of a 15-year-old daughter and how sickening this is. She's also really, really good at showing the diagnosis and her outrage. Again, like when I hear these people, it's genuine. I don't doubt their sincerity for 1 second. I think Becca Balint understands the urgency of this moment. I really do. And I think Becca Balint would be another excellent, excellent candidate for filing and forcing a vote on articles of impeachment. She said this week before the Bondi hearing, she said, I will be holding AG Pam Bondi accountable in front of the House Judiciary Committee today. Epstein survivors deserve justice, and I will fight for them, for accountability, and for the American people. Well, Representative Balint, holding Pam Bondi and holding Donald Trump accountable looks like removing them from office, period, end of story. There is no accountability leaving these criminals in power. These people should be in prison right now. They should be in prison. We have to start by getting them out of our seats of power there where they're actually running our country. This is unthinkable. So there's the number for Becca Balint on your screen, 202-225-4115. I would highly encourage you to call Becca Balint. She's someone with incredible moral clarity. She understands what's going on. You know, I thought about when she was talking about her daughter, actually, I think about when people say we don't have the votes. Okay, this is their common line. We don't have the votes. And this is the common line of critique that I get on Lights On when I try to get people to push for impeachment. We don't have the votes. And I thought about, you know, I think you think about this thing that's going on with Savannah Guthrie and her mother and people being kidnapped and hijacked. And I thought, if your daughter, your mother, someone very, very dear to you were being held hostage by someone, and you were told the only way to free that loved one of yours is to get votes. You got to get votes from people who absolutely have everything against you and are completely on the opposite side of the spectrum and are being themselves, who knows, blackmailed, held hostage, whatever, by these corrupt leaders, and they're afraid. But the only way to free your loved one, or in the case of Becca Balint, the only way to free your 15-year-old daughter is to get the votes. Well, you damn well would get the votes. You would do whatever you had to do to get the votes, and you would work so friggin' fast, faster than you'd ever worked before to get those votes. You would do it through public pressure. You would do it through private pressure. You would be making phone calls. You would be exhausting every measure possible to move those people you needed to move to rescue your 15-year-old daughter. That's the kind of urgency that these representatives need to be working with right now. to rescue this country and the people that are dying within it because of this criminal, murderous regime. Need votes? Get the votes. That's what we hired you to do. So those are just a few of the representatives who I selected because of how good they already are, okay? I selected them because of how much clarity they already have on the issues. And we simply need them to to match that clarity, that outrage of the correct diagnosis with the remedy that they have sworn to uphold, Article 2, Section 4 of the United States Constitution. Now, there's one more representative that I'm going to shine a light on here because this has everything to do with Representative Al Green. Let me kind of paint you the picture with what's happening in the 18th Congressional District of Texas. Representative Al Green, as you know, if you've been watching the show, and as I told you in the last 40 minutes, has been the singular member of this body, of the House of Representatives, taking the proper steps to remove this lawless regime. And his actions have been wrongfully, and I emphatically repeat, wrongfully portrayed as performative, when in fact he is the only one who is not taking performative action. Filing an impeachment against Kristi Noem and letting it sit in committee, that is performative. Filing an article of impeachment and forcing a vote 2 days later, that is one hell of that is concrete, needle-moving action, as I explained to you in that 77% surge that we got between votes. Anything but performative. And he is being targeted by his own party. They are trying to unseat him. Here's what happened in Texas. Gerrymandering, okay? Actually, I think that one reason that Donald Trump went after Texas in the way that he did is because of, singularly because of Al Green. So Al Green was gerrymandered out of his district, his current district, the 9th district in Texas. They turned it into a Republican district. He challenged it in the Supreme Court and lost, up to the Supreme Court and lost, not surprisingly. He is now running because it's the only district that he has a hope of winning with being gerrymandered out of the current one in the 18th district. Now, the 18th district, because of the gerrymandering, just had a special election to fill an empty seat. And a Democrat just won that seat. His name is Christian Menefee. Now, Al Green did not run to fill that empty seat in the 18th because he didn't want to abandon his current district, which is the 9th. But Al Green has to run in the 18th. That's his only hope to stay in Congress. And this current congressman, Christian Menefee, who has only been in Congress for less than 2 weeks, that election was on January 30th, is now challenging Al Green in the 18th district, which is the new district that Al Green is running in. And this is, I'm going to be honest, teeing up to be a very nasty race. They have painted Al Green as early on, the attack line seemed to be his age, that he's 78 years old. And, you know, it's a popular trend right now, rightfully so in some respects and for the right reasons, to get people out of Congress who have been there too long. Al Green doesn't fit into that category. That applies to people who are old and not doing their job and just enjoying the perks of this lifestyle without fresh ideas and fresh constitutional enforcement. That's not Al Green. Al Green mentally is, I think, the youngest person in Congress right now, the most fresh and on his feet, responding to the dire crisis that this country is facing. Nobody has been as youthful and vibrant in his reaction and upholding of his sworn duty to this crisis than Representative Al Green. And yet he has been framed as too old, and that's why he needs to go. And this came out a few weeks ago in the Houston Chronicle. One of their editorial board put out an article about his age being the reason why he should be pushed out of Congress. And they have since put out a follow-up endorsing Christian Menefee that I think is just really so shameful. And they say it's not just about his age. They say it's because Christian Menefee, the new challenger, who I believe is an attorney in Texas, wins more fights than Al Green. And they frame this with those votes that Al Green has forced on impeachment as though those forced votes are performative and losing battles. How disgusting, Houston Chronicle. How disgusting that you would frame the one thing that actually moves the needle towards saving our country from demise from a fascist, tyrannical, corrupt regime as performative, and endorse his opponent, who I'm sure is a fine young man who's been in Congress for 2 weeks, over this man who has served 11 years, who walked with John Lewis and was arrested with John Lewis, who got his education and fortitude and moral clarity from the civil rights movement, actually standing beside and walking through with some of the most respected and lauded leaders of that fight, which, by the way, is the precursor to everything that the white people in this country are facing right now. How dare you say that anything that he has done is performative, or that he doesn't win the battles that he takes? I am a living witness that Al Green wins battles. And I have been standing beside him as he wins those battles, because our movement has been making exceeding and massive progress. If you are in Houston, I need you, my friends, to pay attention to this race in Texas. It is on March 3rd. Not only is he being challenged by Democrats who are trying to get him out, he is being challenged by cryptocurrency. A PAC just put in $1.5 million to try to unseat Al Green because he voiced his concerns about the crypto industry and the lowering value of the US dollar. I need you to pay attention to what is happening in that district. And by the way, if Christian Menefee really deserves to win that seat over Al Green, I think there's only possibly one thing that could make him deserve it. And it would be a very hard reach for me, as much as I admire and respect Al Green, but only one thing. And that would be if Christian Menefee, in this 2 weeks that we have before March 3rd, started filing and forcing votes on articles of impeachment. If he hopes to even come close to the measure of a man that Al Green has been in that body, he should be filing and forcing votes on articles of impeachment. Here's Christian Menefee's phone number on your screen: 202-225-3816. 202-225-3816. Please call Christian Menefee's office and tell him that what this Constitution requires, the one he just swore an oath to for the first time in that body, it requires that he invoke Article 2, Section 4, as only Al Green has in the past by forcing a vote. And that we would like to see Christian Menefee show some of that same courage and winning fight as the man that he is trying to unseat in Texas 18th District on March 3rd. Christian Menefee's office, 202-225-3816. I want to end the show today with you with a comment from last week's show from one of our viewers. By the way, I want to thank all of the members of this channel. I don't do it nearly enough. I want to thank all the supporters. Let me just name the standout members. Who's the highest level of membership here. We've got one of our OGs, been with us for so long, Betsy Maher. We've got Doc Robinson, Bella Harkos, Stargazer, Christian Golden, and the newest, Frin of Frobois. I know I said that wrong, but you'll know who you are. Thank you so much for your support. You keep this show going. You keep the lights on. I only can do this because of your support. Thank you so much for that. And thank you to everybody who shares this vital movement to save our democracy. I'm going to share with you this one comment from last week. I had two brave women who have been putting themselves on the line when our Congress has been failing us over and over again. And this comment said, "Preach it, ladies, righteous outrage, and everything you said is exactly right. People do not get it. This is a life or death situation. Trump and his ilk know that. I'm an old man, and we learned back in the late 60s and early 70s that when everyone pushes in the same direction at the same time, the system will roll over." Thank all three of you for speaking out and harnessing your justified outrage. So that's what this is all about, pushing in the same direction at the same time for impeachment and removal. I just gave you some very specific instructions on how you can do that. I'm telling you, this is the answer. That's why I harp on it so much. And that's why I won't let any naysayers take me off my track. This is our constitutional remedy, and it's what needs to be done now. File articles of impeachment, force votes. Don't settle for anything less. Don't settle for anything less. Thank you all so much for joining me this week and every week on Lights On. Thank you for upholding this movement. Thank you for sharing this content and battling the suppression that is trying to silence us. I was the canary in the coal mine years ago, refusing to be silenced when Donald Trump came after me, and I'm not about to let them silence me now. Thank you so much for being part of this movement. Thank you for supporting my work and my continued legal battle at thejessicadenson.com/donate. I need that support. I have a multi-thousand, tens of thousands of dollar legal bill to pay right now to appeal a decision that was dismissed under this administration about 1 year ago. And that is going into appeal just at the end of this month. I need your support. Thank you so much for that. You can do that at thejessicadenson.com/donate. You can also buy merch at thejessicadenson.com and subscribe to my new Substack, which is at jessicadenson.substack.com. Thank you all so much. As always, stay in your power. Have a wonderful weekend and let your light